Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with Ashley Hicks.
Hey.
Just the two of us today. It's going to be a fun one, but Joe's out, I don't know, slacking off.
Some baby thing.
Some sort of baby vacation. I don't know. Apparently people take time off after babies, whatever. So I'm not spoiling the surprise, right? He announced everything. So yeah, Joe did not have a baby, but his wife had a baby, and that's why he's not here today. And everything's going well, baby's good, all that good stuff. So that's the update for everyone else. I'm sure he'll provide more information the next time he comes on, but that's Joe's update. What's your update? How's life going for you?
Good. Life is going good. Actually, we leave today and we're headed to San Antonio and gonna go house hunting. We've got quite a list, which might be cut in half by the time we get there, but we'll see. The market is just as hot as is anywhere else. Thankfully, Texas home prices are very nice compared to Florida home prices. The one issue you run into, though, is, good gracious, the property taxes. They're quite significant. Even here in Florida, you have, higher property taxes just because you don't have state tax here either. But it's nothing like it is in Texas. So
yeah, that's why, even if you can afford more house in Texas, you probably shouldn't buy it because the property taxes are going to be insane. And having only owned real estate in Texas, very aware of the unfortunate property taxes.
Yeah, for sure. We have a house in Lubbock, but the mortgage is nothing, and it's, a college kind of, we let college kids rent it out kind of thing. So that doesn't, but yeah, property taxes in Texas are pretty crazy. But on track, maybe even we'll hit 300 level 1 for daily over decades, which has been fun. I don't know. Every time I hear Kyle or Joe say their number, I just want to beat them. I don't know.
I love competition.
I am very, very motivated by that. I've always been competitive. So Kyle, I think, is 2 days ahead of me. So I always try to get 5 to 6 workouts in a week. So I'm well surpassing the 200 minutes. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. What's going on with you?
I'll pick up right there. So it's still on 300.3, doing well. And I don't know, it's just become the new normal. I feel like like a new habit, it takes a while. And they say, everyone says that 21 days to a new habit. And then if you read the One Thing book, they point out that from that study, it takes 21 days was the average of how long it took someone to make a new habit. But it goes all the way up to some people taking 200 days to be able to really nail a new habit. And then the middle, the mode there was 66 days. And so that's kind of what they land on. And I feel like I am on the longer side of that. I don't think I pick up habits very quickly. I'm decent at developing them, but I don't feel like it comes to habit for we're here at the end of the first quarter of the year, 3 months in, and I feel I'm just now
70 days in or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I just now actually feel I got it. I'm hitting my stride. I know what it takes. And because the first couple of weeks I was having to do a lot of we talked about them, either throwaway workouts or extra work on Sundays and all this junk. And now I kind of just got it figured out. For lack of a better term there. So it's going well. My brother's doing his version of it too. I think I'm trying to push him to do the 200. and he's on it, so he's doing well. But I'm really enjoying it. I think it's good. The community's still. We had that webinar, and I asked like, "Hey, who's still in it? Who's still doing the challenge?" And there were so many athletes that were still in it. So for
Yeah.
everyone listening, like, good work. This is no easy challenge, and if you're still in it, pushing yourself, that's awesome.
Are you still doing harder to kill, or are you just doing like your kettlebell thing?
Yeah, harder to kill with a kettlebell. So
Okay.
that's kind of the mixture that I've been doing. Is I'm still throwing in. I'm really doing,
Squats.
if there's squats, yeah, in hard to kill, then I'm just doing that with a barbell. But then other than that, I'm trying to sub a kettlebell everywhere else. And forcefully making a lot of other athletes do kettlebell work as well, because I talked about trying to increase people's pressing strength.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get a ton of unilateral work in pressing movements with a kettlebell. So it'll be a good cycle. Life wise, same old, just rocking it, just soccer practices and everything else, just doing what I do. So life's pretty boring for me. I don't have any moves planned that I'm aware of yet, but
Oh no, here we
there's
go.
always next month. You never know. Anything could happen. So yeah.
You're just jealous that like half the team moved this year, so you got to do it too.
Yeah, I'm kind of like feeling left out. I'm normally the one always like moving around and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the study here. I'm pretty excited about this one, or really just to talk about the topic in general. So the name of the study is Short-Term Effects of Two Different Recovery Strategies on Muscle Contractile Properties in Healthy Active Men, a randomized crossover study. And so really it was looking at three different things: cold water immersion, hot water immersion, and doing nothing, which, that's got to be the control, right? And I think there were 28. Was it all men? I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Yeah.
It's fine.
28 men who completed the study. And really, the main thing I want to hit on here is they were really just looking at that immediate time window post exercise for recovery. And they were using something called tensiomyography, which I wasn't super familiar with, to be honest. And we've read a lot of studies, and I had not heard of this one as a recovery method. And I'll talk about it a little bit more, but just a broad picture of what they did a baseline tensiomyography assessment. They would do 5 sets of 8 reps with 8 rep max load on leg extension. Post training, they would do tensiomyography assessment, and then they would do either 15 minutes of cold water immersion, hot water immersion, or passive resting. And then they would do the final tensiomyography assessment immediately post intervention, and 15, 30, 45, and 60 minutes after the workout, essentially. And everyone acted as their own control. Everyone did all the different things. And now tensiomyography, I read about it, looked at it, and then I'm just like, okay, what's the easiest way I can explain it to my understanding for everyone listening? And really, they stimulate electrically stimulate your
Muscle.
muscles, and then they're just really seeing what their contractile response is, with the theory being, and a lot of data to back it up as far as the device is concerned, is just based off of that response, your fatigued muscles are either ready to go again, aka
Mhm.
recovered, or they're not. And I don't know if I need to go in much more detail than that, but that's how they were doing it. That's what they looked at in this study. And we can dive into a lot more stuff, because I'm obviously a huge fan of hot water immersion, or just hot heat therapy in general. I have a sauna. I also like cold water immersion. I have a cold plunge, and I do those things regularly. And I want to talk about why I do them, and then we'll talk about recovery as well. But when you were looking at the study, what did you think?
Yeah, so for again, I didn't really know too much about the tensiomyography as well. So I kind of just looked up the little layman's terms, and I guess they were also looking at like the velocity and how long the contraction time was under, which that kind of helped me be like, okay. But yeah, just what Jerred said, it was heat, cold, and then they set them on a bench. Like, I feel like
Yeah,
if I
they're
was the
going.
person on the bench, I'd be like, can I stretch? Like, can I do anything? I know
Yeah.
why they
Go play on your
did.
phone.
Yeah, exactly. You got 20 minutes, just chill out or whatever it is. Um, I did, because it was males, I did wish there were some females, because of I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago we did that recovery between the males and the females. And so I wonder how long it would have taken the females to recover versus the males there. But shoulda, woulda, coulda. And then I said that darn leg extension. I wish they would have just done something cool, like a squat or anything like that. But the bath water was 107 degrees
I know,
Fahrenheit.
it's like hot, right?
It's super hot.
And it
And
said plus or minus 2, so like it could even go up to like 109. Like that's crazy.
and 2 degrees difference at that temperature is huge, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I think about too, like, you're coming right off a training session. I guess leg extensions aren't like super taxing where you're sweating a ton. But if I'm thinking for like garage gym athletes, like, hey, we're going to try this out. Like, you have an hour of your workout that you're crushing. And then if you're anything like me, you're sweating profusely. Florida is getting hotter. And then you got to go jump into 105, 107-degree water. Like, I feel like that's just so much torture.
Yeah.
But
And
sorry.
like no, and like where were they working out? I thought the same exact thing because like for you and I and most everyone listening, if it's summer in the garage, we're already exercising probably at around, let's say, anywhere from 80 to 100 degrees. Let's just go
Yeah,
across the nation. And where they may have been in like a 60-degree air conditioning space,
true.
then going to this hot, which I think could really have like huge effect on the overall like outcome of the study,
Right.
because when you and I finish, we're already very warm, and our muscles are very warm. Like how much more would it be necessary, or how much would it help us if we were to get into hot water right after?
Yeah, most definitely. So that would be interesting to know, like, what was the temperature that they were in? Because you're right. I think that might, I don't know, who knows if it would have helped but for the cold water immersion, that was 50 degrees. And so for your cold plunge, how cold does it like let you take it?
It goes all the way down to 39 degrees, but I've read a lot of the
Okay.
research, so I typically keep it right in that range. I keep it around 50 degrees at all times. So
Okay.
39 is like, um, and when I was in the Air Force, I had an F-16 pilot tell me this. He's like, this is like all the way back in ROTC when I was doing like a FAM ride in an F-16. He's like, do you want to do like 9 Gs? And I was like, of course. He's like, it's cool to say you've done, but it's not fun to do. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't care. And that's how I feel about really cold water. Is like
Mhm.
39 degrees. It's like, it's maybe cool to say you've done, but it's not fun at all. And so that's
Yeah.
why I don't like to keep it that cold.
All right. You just got to sit in it once to say that you've done
Yeah,
it, even
exactly.
if it's for 30 seconds. Yeah. So 50 degrees for the cold water immersion, which I feel like that's huge. I mean, lots of people I know do cold water immersion almost directly after workout. There's even a guy in Scott's squadron. He literally takes his like trough and brings it with him because, the boys have their own gym, sticks it in there, brings his own ice and does his own cold
Oh,
water
nice.
immersion literally right after everything. So I thought about him during the study, but dun dun dun. Out of all three, the heat won. I mean, heat the hot water immersion worked better for recovery than the other two. Obviously, I think we all would know that passive sitting on a bench would probably do nothing.
It maybe hurt even, right? Like just
Yeah,
to go from exercise to doing nothing is really the worst thing you can do for
exactly.
recovery.
So, for garage gym athlete takeaways, like I said, I think just because we train in our garages, and I'm sorry for the people that do train in other places, and that's the other thing too, for if you're working out at like a Globo gym or some other gym, sometimes there's always like a sauna, or there's also, you can just make the shower really hot. You can't really like stick a temperature gauge in a shower though, unfortunately. But this is a really cool thing to try. Like, you literally walk from your garage into your bathroom and stick yourself in a bathtub that is pretty darn hot. And what was it, 20 minutes that they did on each one, I believe?
15.
15. Okay.
Yeah.
So 15 minutes, set yourself a timer, just get in there. And then I feel like it's just a little bit extra mental toughness.
Yeah. And I feel like hot's a little bit easier for most people to handle than cold, which is good.
Maybe. Yeah.
But yeah, I think why I think it's cool. So Ashley kind of already hit on it. Heat one, and remember we're looking at up to 60 minutes post exercise recovery. So we're not looking at like longer term stuff here. But heat one, but I think that's good news for garage gym athletes because cold is not an easy thing to accomplish. Like it's pretty clear from the research that cold showers don't do the same thing because it just can't bring the entire body temperature down because it's not enough exposure unless you had like, I don't know, like one of those crazy showers that has like 10 heads up and down the wall and all this other crap, maybe you would get there. But cold is harder and more expensive to try and do, or it's just more work. You're talking about like the trough with ice, like that's a lot of work. I did that for a long time, and I'd only do cold water immersion maybe once a month when I was doing that because it's a big commitment to like pull that thing out, go get a bunch of ice. So the good news is, like Ashley said, you could just finish the workout, run a hot bath, and then get in it if you really wanted to try out, this recovery method. And so I think that's cool for garage gym athletes that they can do it. But I kind of want to talk about hot and cold in general, because I do want to get into just why why on earth would I invest thousands of dollars into having a sauna and also a cold plunge? What are these benefits? And nowhere in my line of thinking was I concerned about athletic recovery.
Right.
And that's one thing I wanted to make sure people know when we're looking at these things is there's a lot more benefit. And I think that people should dive into the research a little bit more. And I'm actually going to point people to the person I've relied on when looking at this stuff. And that's Dr. Rhonda Patrick. And so, no relationship or anything like that, but she has phenomenal information. She's got a great podcast, YouTube channel, and crazy awesome articles on her website, which is foundmyfitness.com. You can specifically look at all the research that she has. She just has like these categories on her website with all of the scientific links and literature and all these things. And so you can go look at cold water immersion and hot water immersion, or sauna is really what she focuses on, and pull a lot of data. But there's so many different reasons to do it, like cold exposure, increases brown adipose tissue, increases energy expenditure, induces mitochondrial biogenesis, which is like the development of new mitochondria, which we're just learning, I think, as a health and fitness community, how important mitochondria are. It induces a norepinephrine response, which may benefit brain health. This is just cold exposure. Heat exposure can do a lot of the same things, fights cognitive decline, releases heat shock protein, which is like the first line of defense for cells that are like dying or not doing what they're supposed to. So there's a lot of health benefits involved with hot and cold water immersion. So I just wanted to hit on that. Those are the main reasons I do them. Because cold, to be honest, if you're looking at it in an athletic sense, I feel like the scientific literature is becoming more damaging than it is helpful. And I'm realizing that every time a new study pops up, and I don't feel like this was the case even 1 to 2 years ago.
Yeah.
People are learning more and more stuff, because what we have learned about cold water immersion is that, yeah, you can get in and it will reduce swelling and like make you feel a little bit better. And so, but that it blunts your muscle hypertrophy. Like it does all these bad things for like you seeing results, and so that's why cold can be bad. And especially now they're finding long-term, like it can make your 1 rep maxes go down. It can decrease your muscle mass, and all these things, but you just have to know how to use it. So cold has to be separated as far away from training as you can possibly do, because there's nothing inherently bad about cold. But what most people do is they train and then they hop in the cold. And if you're to do cold like first thing in the morning or before you work out and then train later, there's no real negative benefit, and there's only positive health benefits. Now with heat, I was unaware that there was any sort of recovery modality post exercise that would be helpful. So I think that that's really cool that the study is saying, yeah, go get hot right after a training session and you'll, recover faster. I think that that's really cool. And again, also a lot of health benefits. Doesn't really matter when you do it. Emily and I do the sauna almost every single night.
Mm.
And so that's just kind of part of our routine. And I do, think that it helps with my recovery quite a bit.
Could you
I
just
don't,
start it up and do it right after your workout too?
yeah. And I've done that a few times. I actually don't normally do that on like a non-training day, like an active recovery day. I have this like to still get 300 calories. This is what I've been doing. It's not what I used to do until we started this challenge, but I'll do like zone 2 exercise for like 20 to 25 minutes. And then I'll do yoga for 20 to 25 minutes. During that time period, the sauna's heating up, and then I'll get in the sauna. And then I'll do the sauna. And so that's kind of because I'll normally hit my 300 calories in those first 40 minutes and then get in the sauna and finish out just like with the recovery session. And so, but I do not struggle with exercise recovery in the slightest.
Right.
And
I mean, you hit all of our elements and
yeah,
then some.
I think doing all the elements, doing hot and cold stuff, like I even have done like really hard workouts and I still recover. So I do think that there's something to it. This is very anecdotal here, but
Yeah.
I used to get more sore and feel a little bit more beat up. And I know I'm not probably training as hard as I ever have. I think we've all backed off on intensity to some degree.
Yeah.
But still, even the days I've gone hard, if I do all the things correctly with the EO3 elements and hot and cold and everything else, I'm normally pretty ready to go that next day. And so I think it's worth looking into for most athletes, some version of this. And the fact that you can just get in a hot bath. Most everyone has a bathtub in their home.
Does your brother do the sauna with you?
Yeah, on those days he will.
I
Like
feel
when
like
we set it up.
that's huge benefit for people who have any sort of like injuries or anything like that too. I feel like would be great. I think the questionable thing now, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but some influencers that are on like Instagram and whatnot, they're pushing you've got like this in-home, I think I sent it to you guys actually on the Slack chat, and it's like an infrared sauna.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just like zip yourself in there. And then Trampus went and Googled search and found like a $50 one at Lowe's. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I would necessarily buy these things. So that's just a caution for anyone listening, like word to the wise. If it's $50, you probably don't want to buy it. / how hot is it really getting? Let's be for real. But
yeah. And if you check out any of the resources I mentioned with Dr. Rhonda Patrick, she kind of talks about the difference between just a sauna that gets hot, like mine. It's just got a heating element and it gets really freaking hot in there versus like an infrared sauna, because it's very easy to go to like an infrared sauna's website and like read like, oh, it's heating me from the inside out, like it's super like, to me that sounds scary. It sounds like you're in a microwave, like that's what microwaves do. But just you can look at the difference. The research is in massive favor of just getting hot, like just getting hot from like a hot sauna, not necessarily infrared, but it doesn't mean infrared is ineffective. There's just not enough research on it yet. And so there are two very different types of heat therapy there. I went with a just straight hot one because the research was there, to be honest.
right.
And I'm a little bit scared of like, again, they say it's safe, right? But like every smoking was safe until it wasn't.
That's so
I
true.
think, and so like, I don't want light bulbs like that shining on me, like, cause I do it every day. So I don't want to like find out later, like, oh, maybe that was a bad idea. But I know for a fact humans can get hot, right? Like that's just something that we have to live with by being on the earth. So I'm not too concerned about like any like negative effects there. But one thing Emily and I have talked about a lot recently, because there are all these good things that you can do, right? With the proper dose, whether it's hot, cold, exercise, fasting, like all these things. But everything has a cost. And that's what we've been saying a lot lately to each other, is like everything has a cost. It doesn't matter what it is. there's going to be a cost and some sort of negative to the positive thing that you're doing. Like with exercise, like there's a lot of benefits, right? You almost can't argue to not do it, but there's going to be a cost. There's a cost in your time, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's a legitimate cost. It could be time away from your family, but it's ultimately for your family. So maybe that outweighs it. And then if you go too hard or you have too much intensity, there's a cost there. There's a cost. Just a cost to everything. There's no good thing that you do on this planet that doesn't have a cost associated with it. And I think that people need to realize that. So I think also stressing out your body with hot and cold all the time, like there's going to be a cost to that. And you need to be aware of those things as well. So know that there's nothing that's all good. Not even exercise. Exercise can have negative benefits or effects. But cool. Anything else on hot or cold?
No, I wish I had a sauna, but I have a bathtub, so that's cool.
That's all you need. And that's what I thought was so cool, because I feel like that research wasn't there when I was like purchasing my sauna. And then it was like, it was Dr. Rhonda Patrick. She's like, hey, it turns out you can just get in a hot bath and have all the same benefits. And I was like, damn it. Like, I didn't have to buy this crazy thing. I'm really glad I have it. I'm not a bath guy. Like I'm not.
Plus, you guys didn't have a bath until you redid your bathroom. So
yeah, funny story. If anybody wants to know, we bought this house and it was remodeled because it's like an older ranch style house. But the person who remodeled it was like, they hated bathtubs.
Apparently,
they made sure that not a single bathroom in our house had a bathtub. Everything was a shower, which was like a huge, like, we knew buying it because Emily likes baths. We were like,
she loves baths.
this is going to happen at some point. Like we're going to have to get a bathtub in here. And so we did, faster than we thought, because we found out we had mold in our house or whatever, but that's neither here nor there. We have a bathtub now. That's all that matters.
Oh man.
Yeah. So if you're like me and you don't have a bathtub in your house, just get a sauna. You'll be good to go. It's cheaper than remodeling a bathroom.
That's very true. That is very true.
All right, we'll get into the book. I'm kind of bummed that Joe and Kyle can't be here for this. Maybe we can, hash it out a second time too, when they get back on. But Trampus read it as well, and
I'm pretty sure Marco did too.
Oh, did he? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I love about these books. Like I love the team chat when we're all like talking about the books and then getting kind of the banter between each other. It's kind of hilarious. So
yeah, I really like this book. So the book is, I've mentioned on the podcast a few times, The Perfect Mile, 3 athletes, 1 goal in less than 4 minutes to achieve it, by Neil Bascom. And I just thought it was a phenomenal book. So it's about the attempt by 3 men in the 50s to become the first to run the mile in less than 4 minutes in a classic 20th century sports story. So I'm just kind of reading the highlights here. I won't get much. We can talk more about it, but that's all the book is about. It's about the battle to break that sub 4 minute barrier on the mile. And I think that it's a very interesting story. I didn't know that there was so much, let's just say, drama surrounding that. Right? I should have known, but like, I'm very interested. I love the mile distance. I love that race. I love all the things. And so I read about it, and I also thought this book would kind of like not be good when I first read it. The primary reason I decided to read this book and I found it is I knew Roger Bannister broke the 4 minute mile. I just knew that was the dude who did it. And I started to look more into his training because I wanted to break just the 5 minute barrier. I was like, well, I could probably do it if I know what I'm doing and how the training should work. And then I found this book and I was like, okay, maybe it will have some like training information in here. And I did get some decent training information, but it's really not about the training. The book is very well written. Mm-hmm. Like for following a real world story, the author did an amazing job, I think, in writing this book. But I'll throw it to you. What do you think about The Perfect Mile, the players in the book, and everything else?
Yeah. So the 3 dudes are, like you said, Roger Bannister, he's from the UK, he's British, and then Wes Santee, who was from Kansas, and John Landy, who was Australian. So really cool that they were all from different places in the world, all trying to do the same thing. And they were super impressive. Like, I feel even the times where you're reading the book and they are failing at breaking the 7-minute mile, like it's like 4.00.06 or something crazy, right? Like these guys were just machines. And what I loved about the book is, just like Jerred said, super easy to listen to. And you kind of get caught up. I do it. I have like a Bluetooth speaker that is waterproof. So I do it when I'm showering and getting ready for the day, because that's when Connor's off doing something else and I can really listen to these books. But I found, like, as I'm like, washing my hair, doing my thing, I'm like getting into the races and I'm like, okay, he's going to do it this time. He's going to do it this time. And it's like, no, they didn't do it this time, but still it's super impressive. I think too, exactly what Jerred said, the drama behind it, man, these people in the media outlets were absolutely ruthless to these guys. Like they talked about like how this person will never break it because of this reason, and he's terrible because of X, Y, and Z. And even like there was one race where the crowd booed because they didn't break the 4-minute mile. And I'm just like, holy
do you know
Moses.
how hard this is?
Right. Like, so it's kind of funny, we have social media now, which is super easy to blast people and do whatever. But I mean, these guys had to pour things, had to wait for the review the next day in the newspaper and, listen to it. But yeah, so just what he said, Roger Bannister was the first one to do it. And I was super impressed with him because he was also in med school. And just like someone who is dedicating his time to become a doctor and then also do something extreme like this, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of Julie Fouché was kind of going through that thing too when she was doing CrossFit Games, and how she was able to manage her schedule on top of that, so I think that's super impressive. And I think he was smart and he knew what pushed him to get there. He knew that he needed like somebody breathing down his back. And then there's, you can Google all this stuff, so I feel like I'm not like ruining the book for people. But when him and Landy are running and he keeps Landy in his sight until the very, very end and passes him, I feel like the rabbit method for me also works really, really good. I love having someone like right in front of me and then kind of like giving that last gas and go. So granted, 4-minute miles, not a thing for me, but yeah, I thought it was really cool. And I have some thoughts on Wes Santee, but I won't bash him too much. I'll let you kind of dive into what you thought.
Yeah. So again, you hit on it. It was John Landy from Australia, Wes Santee from the US, and Roger Bannister from England. And what's interesting about Roger Bannister, if you ever hear him mentioned these days, you will hear him be called Sir Roger Bannister. So he was knighted. And I had always known that too. Like I knew it was Sir Roger Bannister just from having like read other things. And I just always assumed, I don't know how England works. I don't know why they knight people, whatever. It's not I was just like, okay, yeah, he ran that mile really fast. And so they knighted him. That's cool. But that's not why they knighted him. They knighted him because he was like this world-class like neurosurgeon and like did some like breakthrough stuff with the brain and surgery and all this crazy stuff. So the dude's just really interesting. And the reason I gravitated towards reading this book again, when I was trying to break the 5-minute mile barrier, and I'm still not necessarily done with that, but when I was most interested is because, if I were to just pick up like, I don't know who a famous miler is right now, but let's just go back to a famous runner like Usain Bolt or something like that. If I was just to be like, you know what, he's fast, I'm going to try and do the training that he does. That would just be dumb, right? Because I don't exercise as much as him and I don't have the time to train like him. We're not built the same. But when I learned that Roger Bannister was able to break the 4-minute mile and be in med school and train, really, he only trained about an hour a day. Like he pushed it a little more than that at times, but he didn't do much other than that. and you could tell his conditioning, what, to be honest, wasn't there, like with how these races would destroy him.
Yeah, he gassed
Stuff.
himself a lot.
Yeah, like he would just like burn it down, like to win these races and to do what he did. But I just found that super interesting. And if you kind of look at some of his training, he just ran like a shit ton of 10 by 4s, like 10 by 400 meters. And so I started doing that a lot. And you just like watch those times click down, you get that 400-meter faster. And then he would do that quite a bit. And they have like a picture, if you have the actual book, of like his training log in the book. And I think that that's really cool because you can look at like what he did and how they got faster. So I think that was cool. Another kind of takeaway from the book was just how different sports were back then to now. Like there was a huge, like what athletes were allowed to do and not do. And like, if you're technically an amateur, like you could only get so much money from people. And today's not like that at all.
Right.
If there was a 14-year-old who could run a 3.5-minute mile, they would be a multimillionaire and have like records, contracts with Nike and all these kind of things. And if you look at Serena Williams and things, like they had those kind of contracts at 14 years old and stuff. So it's just very different how amateur sports were back then to where they were today. And I also, like you're talking about, like when they would run these basically like 4-minute flats or like 4-minute plus couple milliseconds, I'm just like, I don't even trust the stopwatch. Like if you like were to honestly, because it was a dude like using the stopwatch, right? They didn't have like laser timing and all this crap that we have today. But if you know anything about human
error
and reaction times, like if you've ever done like that ruler test, have you ever done that where like they take a yardstick? We did this like in science class, like in high school. So you take like a yardstick and you hold it, and the other your hand is out, and then the yardstick starts at the top of your hand, and then they drop it, and then you have to grab it as soon as they drop it.
Never did that. Huh.
Yeah, well, it's fun. You anyone can do this at home. You can do it with the yardstick.
Give it a go.
and it's a way of measuring your reaction time, because some people, you would drop it, I would catch it. Maybe I'd catch it at like the 3-inch mark, and then other people catch it at like the 9-inch mark.
Right.
And it's just like so drastically different, right? Reaction times are very different in people. So when we're talking about just the thumb moving a little bit, that millisecond could have very well been the sub 4-minute mile multiple different times. And how they like were so like okay with that. And it wasn't even mentioned in the book, but I'm like, I feel like they probably broke the 4-minute mile multiple times. And like the dude with the stopwatch was just like, didn't have his coffee that day or something like that. So
I would have tested the guy with that ruler method first and see who had the fastest one and be like, you are my guy.
Right. Who has the fastest reaction time here? So yeah, it was a really great book though. Really well written. Like I said, because I do not read, and maybe you'd be a good person to ask this. I don't read fiction books. But the story was really good. I see why people get into fiction books though, because you can just get so immersed into the story to where you're like, oh, I have to know what happens. Like what's next? And I felt that way about this story. Would you relate it the same to a fiction book? Like, is that what the appeal was in this book for you? Was it the story, or, I don't know. What'd you think?
Definitely. Like I mentioned, I was definitely caught up in the races, and I will stress, I did listen to this book, right? I didn't read it. Yeah. So listening to the guy who narrated it, even I was listening at 2 times speed, I was still in it, right? You were just like, oh man, oh gosh, like, come on, he's going to pull it in this time. And he's just really descriptive about like where they were at, and especially like with different lap times and how they were feeling. And he goes into detail in that. And I think that really pulls you in. So most definitely, I think the story was fabulous. And then, the end, because just what you said, if you're around any sort of like, athletic world, you knew that Roger Bannister was the guy that did it. But still, it was really cool to kind of be a part of their stories.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot you can take away from it. Really good story, and just really cool. I think you give those guys today's track spikes, today's surfaces, they would be the world record holders. I don't know what the current mile time is. It's like 3, 4. I think it's in the 40s, something. Yeah. Yeah, it's something crazy fast, but I think these guys would have been like 350s easily just given all the tech that we have today. You know, one thing that I thought was really cool about the thing, and then we can kind of move on the story, was Roger Bannister like basically building the track that he ran on,
That's
because
right.
just because like it wasn't like a big priority for anybody else. And he's like, well, fine, I'll just build it. It's just like, okay, dude, you're in medical school, you're building your own track and like training. Like that's not how today's world works. You know, they're
Mm.
like, athletes are pampered and, you know, so well taken care of. And so it's just crazy, but a really good book if you're into athletics and you want a good story, and it's all true. So it's pretty good. Pretty good book. Let's get into the rating. Joe, I don't know. Joe had a problem with
Bannister, which
Bannister.
we're
All the
kind of
things that
split
we are saying are good
evenly.
things, he thinks are bad. So like I don't know. I think Joe is holding Bannister to today's athletes' standards of like what he should have done or could have done. But the fact that he didn't focus that much on his running career because he knew he wanted to be a doctor
Doctor.
just makes me respect him more, you know, because
Yeah.
to be honest, there's not a lot at the end of the professional athlete journey back then. It was like, I would much rather be a medical doctor than, you know, a track athlete, especially back then. So,
Mm.
all right, whatever, Joe. Okay. He's not even here and I'll give him crap. All right, so let's give our ratings. I have Kyle's here. Joe didn't leave a rating that I can see in his notes, but what was your rating?
It's definitely a 5 out of 5. I would read this book all over again.
Yeah, I give it a 5 as well. And Kyle gave it a 5, and Joe gave it a 5 since he didn't write down what he said. I don't honestly know what Joe would give it. Maybe a 4, maybe a 5, but very highly rated from the team here. I don't think we all rate a book
Yeah.
that high. So
Trampus
definitely
really
worth a
liked
read.
it too, so I think he would give it a 5 as well.
Yeah, I think Trampus would be in the 5 category for sure. All right, cool. Well, let's get on to the workout. It is heavy load long distance. I'll brief this one. Don't worry, I got it.
Thank you. It's really
So
hard.
it's a very tough one. So max meters in 60 minutes, you bear hug a sandbag and you carry it. And you got those 60 minutes and you're just going to accumulate as many meters as you possibly can. And that is it.
Get into the weights. That's not it.
Yeah, well, what as heavy as you want to go.
Oh, okay. When you hear the competitor weight, I'm like, oh, sweet Moses.
Yeah, I think weights are relative. You can go anywhere from 5 pounds, you know, whatever you think that you should do. But you could do 20 to 30 pounds. You know, I honestly don't think it matters because of I'll get to like kind of my meet yourself part of this. 20 to 30 pounds for recruit, 30 to 40 pounds for established, and competitor 40 to 50 pounds. So what do you think? What tips you have on this one?
This one is all mental for me. Like I mean, my body obviously is gonna hurt a little bit, but this one is definitely straight mental of like, you need to stop, right? And I'm telling myself you need to stop. I forget when it was, but it was a couple years back, and I had just had Connor, and this came up, and I was like, I don't want to do this one. I'm going to skip it. And you're like, no, someone has taken Connor or is trying to take Connor, and you have to carry him out, and you have to hold him the entire time for him to survive. Now go do it. And it worked. I was just like, okay, like I have to like put myself in a different mental state, like, and then like think about that scenario in order to like push through and grind through this one. So this one's hard for me. I know Kyle loves loads and carries and all this stuff. So I'm interested to see what Kyle would have said for this, but that's what I have to do. I have to literally put myself in like a different like scenario. Like I'm not even here. Someone is chasing my kid and I'm not even carrying anything crazy. Like I carried I carried like a 20-pound med ball because I don't have a sandbag. And that was, I mean, nuts. And then just depending on where you're bear hugging a med ball, like you're either crushing your lungs or you're down in your stomach, you know? So you just have to like keep shifting. I would put my hands underneath it a little bit, like still hugging it, but like kind of underneath, then in the middle, then a little up top. But for me, I definitely between the scenario Like, it's also the rock music. I know you don't like it, but it does get me that like anger to be like, I'm going to finish this stupid thing. So yeah, it's a good one. Figure out where you need to like put yourself and just grind, and you kind of have to just go take, don't, when you think you want to rest, don't rest. Keep going. You can definitely do it. Like I said, I feel like this is a lot of brain stuff. It's not your body failing you, right? Like, I don't think your arms are going to give out on you, kind of thing. So,
Yeah, and I think this, I honestly feel like the most important form of fitness is being able to carry things for
mm,
longer distances, because I think if anything were to happen in life or whatever, that's going to be the most beneficial type, uh, a human's ability to like continue moving with load. It's a lot of what military personnel have to do and more,
yeah.
carrying their own water, carrying their own gear, and all these things. And I think that is just really important. And it goes, we don't focus on it enough, to be honest. Like that, we have an area where we focus on it in our training specifically, but it needs to be focused on more. But I think that it's so mental, and I think very similar situations, and that's why I said it to you. Is, I mean, my kids are a lot bigger now, so I probably
Yeah.
couldn't carry the oldest. I don't know how much he weighs, like 75 pounds or something. That'd be it'd be hard to carry, but he's so big, he should be able to walk himself. Anyway, if I
You
had to
can buddy carry
carry,
him. Just throw him over your shoulders.
yeah, if I had to carry somebody for a long distance, that's always what I'm thinking of too, is like, if I had to move like a long distance, you know, how would I be able to handle myself in that situation? And the reason I want to talk about the weights a little bit more is because I've actually tested this workout all the way down to 30 pounds, because that's where my med ball is. I have a med ball that's 30 pounds,
Mm,
and it still sucks about the same, because what sucks is if you're just doing it really heavy, to be honest, it's almost a disadvantage. So don't think that you're tougher because you selected the heavier weight. It should be relative to what you can do. Because if you have something that's just really heavy and you're bear hugging that and it's kind of too heavy for you and you're having to set it down a bunch, you're really losing out on a lot of the mental aspect of this. Because even when I did it with 30 pounds, I start to hurt in all the same places. Like I'll start
right.
to hurt in like my upper back
Mm,
from like having to like try
mm.
and keep my back upright and keep going forward. So it's very difficult even when you're using less weight. But then it just becomes that like, it almost becomes more of a mental game when you go lighter, because you're like, well, I know I could go heavier. I'm going lighter. So I should be able to go further. It's almost like you're like taunting yourself. You're like, well, I've selected a lighter weight. I shouldn't have to break as much, but you still want to. It still hurts the same. So
Mm,
don't worry too much about the weight, is my point in your selection here. It's going to suck almost no matter what. You just have to find something that's uncomfortable and bear hug it and carry it, and really put yourself in these situations where you might need it one day. Like I
mm.
hope that nobody ever needs to utilize uh, fitness in a survival capacity, but maybe you'll have to. We've had athletes on the podcast who talk about um, kids getting hurt and having to carry them out of a trail when they went hiking, or like
Mm.
having to sprint out of the forest when their wife had like an asthma attack and you need to get her inhaler. Like we've had all sorts of stories like this pop up on the podcast before. So you never know when these things might happen. I'm not talking about like doomsday prepper into the world type stuff. I'm just talking about like basic life stuff that could happen, that you could find yourself in, that you want to be prepared for. Because like, what if you actually had to carry a kid out of the woods if you went on a hike this harmless hike or whatever, and you just couldn't do it?
Right.
Like that would, I don't know what that would feel like, to just be like sitting there with like a kid who's unconscious or something like that, and like you just like I can't go any further. Like, like
Yeah.
you gotta find it. You gotta find how to get out of there. And I don't think we can realistically put ourselves in that level of situation, because there'd be a lot of like adrenaline and everything else. But if you could put yourself in just like 50% of what that would feel like, I think you
Mm.
could knock this workout out of the park. So I think everyone should kind of put themselves there and really push yourself.
Yeah. I feel like this kid is like a overall core workout, like back here, and then obviously like especially carrying, because you're trying not to like lean over, what you said too. Man, if you leaned over the entire time that you were trying to like carry this thing, you could do some serious injury. So I mean, just check your form each time, maybe roll your shoulders back, do what you need to do. And even as you're holding the ball, you can kind of shake it out a little bit. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's a tough one, but definitely will meet yourself on this one. But that's all I have for this one. This was fun, a fun
Yeah.
duo podcast that we haven't gotten to do before. But yeah, every garage gym athlete out there who's hitting the workout, staying consistent, still doing the daily over decades challenge, just really appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast and being a part of the community, making it awesome. Now, anyone else who's listening, not an athlete yet, or you're thinking about trying it, go for it. We have a lot of different training tracks. We're still right here at the beginning of a new cycle. You can get involved. Just go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a 14-day free trial, and we would love to have you. But that's it for this week. Remember, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you. Gym Athlete Podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Thanks for listening.